my dad. That he was, and my dad. At first, I don't think he was very open to getting to know Lee, but then he did because he was around all the time, and they see the kind of person he is, and he was raised very similar to how we were raised. The family's very important, very good morals and values, hardworking, and my mother saw through the exterior to the interior, and he treated me wonderfully, and we had a lot of fun together, and all those reservations went to the wayside, and we dated for a good 3 years before we got engaged, and then we were engaged for a year, and then got married, and we just celebrated our 20-year anniversary this past May. I think the first time I saw him was he was pushing one of those big monster portable X-ray machines from behind, and he had on a pair of white Levi's, and I thought, nice butt. So I liked him from behind. And then when he turned around, I thought he was pretty handsome, so I said, all right. So the day that I went down to the X-ray department to see if my friend was working there and Lee was working there, we struck up the conversation. But I kind of saw him from afar a couple of times and thought he was kind of handsome. He was muscular and stuff. So I said, oh, he looks pretty cute.
What was your best date?
Gosh, we used to do all those fun things that you do when you first start dating. Like, we had romantic Valentine's dinners up in Mystic, Connecticut, and but I'd have to say my favorite dates were always my birthday dates, because we would go out to Montauk in September, which is the off season, and I just found it so beautiful out there. We'd walk along the beach, we'd go to a little pub, maybe grab lunch or dinner, then we'd get coffee, go sit out on the beach again, watch the sunset, browse the little shops. He'd usually pick me up some piece of beautiful beachy silver jewelry out there, and we'd go walking around. It was just nature, him, and the beach. It was just like my favorite scenarios.
And what was your worst date?
Let me think. The worst date. I don't know that we had a worst date. I don't think we ever had a bad date. I can't remember. I wonder if he can think of something, but I can't remember a bad date. I remember meeting his parents, and that was not a good experience at the time, because we went to his parents' house, and I guess I think he confirmed with his dad what day we were coming over for dinner. And his mom typically puts on a big spread. She enjoys cooking for the family too, and she would always make lasagnas and all sorts of Italian stuff on Irish women, but she'd make this really nice dinner, or filet mignon dinners, always really nice dinners when the family would come over. And my father-in-law forgot to tell her we were coming, and we showed up, and she had nothing but like frozen chicken rondelettes and I think 2 steaks that they were going to be having for dinner, and she was embarrassed, and my husband's father, I think when Lee, I could see Lee saying to him, "What happened? Didn't you tell her we were coming?" And I could see them bickering off to the side, which kind of set him off, and he was kind of angry. So his first impression of me, he didn't like me, I think just because he was in this awkward situation, and it was just awkward all around. But then I think his mother insisted we come back another time so she could make it up, and we did, and it was fine after that. But that was early on. I guess I would consider that a date, and that I would have to say was probably the worst experience. But.
So what was there about Lee that sort of made you think this might be serious?
I had never met anyone that I could spend that much time with that I didn't get sick of, excluding girlfriends. I love my girlfriends. They're like my sisters, and I could spend every day with them and never get sick of them. But as far as a guy goes, I had never met someone that I think from the time we actually started to date, I think all of our free time was spent together. And when I brought him around to my friends, they loved him, he loved them. And I met his friends, and they were great. And I think they thought I was great. And we just liked being together. I just never ever got sick of him. We just genuinely had fun, and then the love came, developed down the pike. But I really felt like we were friends first. We really got along as friends first, and I felt like he treated me like a queen too, and that was just awesome to have someone care. He was so thoughtful. He was very very sensitive, always giving cards and stuff like that, and bearing his feelings and stuff. And he was like a big burly guy to me. He was like my Marlboro man, and for him to give these sensitive cards and gifts for no reason, he loved buying me gifts. It was just like a dream, like to meet someone. The few people that I dated throughout high school or college, they weren't even worthy of introducing to my parents. People you had fun with for a short time, but he was like, what you read about. You never think you're going to meet. And I really didn't. I had at one point, I thought to myself, I'd graduated college, and I met him about a year after I graduated college. And I remember thinking at that point to myself, some of my friends had serious boyfriends. And I thought, I am never going to meet anybody, and I'll be damned if I'm going to be 30, 40 years old living with my parents. So I started stockpiling my money, figuring I'm going to get a place on my own. And if I meet someone along the way, great. And if I don't, then I got myself a place, and I'm going to be on my own, grow up. And a year later, there he was, came in the picture. I mean, I didn't even see where he came from. And it was funny, too, because at the time his sister was getting married. We just met. And I remember he had to go to her events. And Ninette was getting married at that time. And I toyed with asking Lee. And my brother convinced me to ask his friend Lance instead. So I didn't bring Lee. I brought Lance, Dominic's friend, as my date to Ninette's party, to Ninette's and Dennis's wedding. I knew Lance. He was like one of my brother's goofy friends. I've known him forever. He knows the family. He knows Ninette. It just made sense to bring him. But I always felt bad about not bringing Lee, but it didn't matter because, it all fell into place afterwards anyway.
So how did it go from nice butt to we're engaged? How did he pop the question, or how did that happen?
Well, like I said, from the time we met, we pretty much spent all of our time together. We worked. I mean, sometimes we worked different days, but after work, we would actually meet afterwards. And instead of going to a bar, we'd go back to my house and go for walks around the neighborhood. And, it was time that you'd be able to have all these really personal talks that you wouldn't in casual conversation over dinner at the hospital or at work. And we realized that we both kind of wanted the same things. We were both starting to feel like we were in love with each other, and we both had the same goals in mind. And we would discuss like game plans and stuff. And I knew I was stockpiling this money, and he had some bills that he needed to pay off. And I remember having a lecture with him. He'll kill me for sharing this, but at the time, he had some debt, and I grew up with, you're going to save your money and you pay for things. You don't buy things unless you can pay for them. So we realized that we had the same goals, and that we wanted to continue to be with each other. And I, knowing how careful I had been with my money and stuff, I realized that the only thing holding me back out of this is somebody that works hard and has a career. The only thing that caused my reluctance was the fact that he had some debt from his colleges and things. And he was living in a basement apartment that he was sharing with his brother and his brother's friend, who neither of whom had jobs. Lee was the guy with the job supporting his two buddies, essentially. Meals, rent, they all just loafed there. had cigars, went to delis for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, living the bachelor. It was the bachelor pad. So my thought process was, I can't marry someone who has debt and can't learn to pay that off and stuff. So that was the only reservation I had, and we sat there and talked about it, and I told him how I felt. I love you, I want to marry you, but I can't marry someone who can't manage their money. You've got to show me that you can do this. And he said, can you help me? Can you show me? And we actually handmade a spreadsheet for him, and we paid off he paid off. I just watched him, make sure he kept to the list, and he paid off all his debt and saved all the money for a beautiful engagement ring, which I had received, and that was all I needed to see, that he can turn it around. I mean, once you learn, it's easy. He had all the means to do it. He just didn't have the know-how. So I showed him, and it was so cute because his younger sister was so impressed. I remember her coming over to my house and her asking me, can you show me how to do this? and sitting down with her and helping her with her finances and showing her how they can, make it all happen and get rid of their debt and that kind of thing. And Lee did, so there was no reason to hold back anymore. And since then, it's my job to do the bills. I still do the bills. But he brings home most of the bacon, so I can't complain. But it's been good ever since. It was a learning lesson for both of us. But
How did he propose?
oh gosh, when we actually decided one time to go into the city to take a look at rings, because we figured we're getting close. He was saving up the money for the ring, and we had picked out, we found something that we fell in love with, and he asked the guy to hold it. And the game plan was that in 3 months he would buy that ring and maybe propose, because he still had 3 months more of bills to just finish off the tail end there, because I wanted him not to owe anything. And I wanted him to have all the money down for the ring. I didn't want him making payments on it. I wanted it, you save the money, then you buy it. And that was the agreement. And then the very next night, I had just gotten off of work, and I was, Lee had come over the house, and I was in my scrubs, and greeted my parents, and I said, all right, I'm going to go upstairs and change. And I go up to my bedroom, and I turn around, and he's behind me. And no boys are ever allowed in the bedroom. I don't even think he'd ever been upstairs. I was kind of shocked he even followed me. And I turned around and said, what are you doing? And he just became at a complete loss for words. He said he knew what he wanted to say, but he just, when it came down to it, he just lost his words, and he pulled the box out of his pocket. And to this day, I make fun of him, too, because he didn't even open it. He just waved this black velvet box in front of my face, not saying anything. And I didn't recognize the box because we didn't buy the ring. I just kind of said, oh, that's a beautiful one. And what he did was he turned around and he went back the next day. I think he brought his sister with him, who lent him the money. He learned nothing. Who lent him the money for the last 3 months that he was supposed to save, so he could buy that ring. And then that day that he proposed, he actually went over to my parents' house and asked my father permission. So they knew he was going to follow me up to the bedroom, and I was aghast to see him in my bedroom. What are you doing here? So he got permission, but to this day, this is what I do to him, to make fun of him, because he just sat there waving some strange box in front of my face. And then when I realized, I said, is that what I think it is? And he said, yeah. And then he opened it and then asked me to marry him. So, and then my parents were downstairs already with the champagne and the glasses because they knew what was happening. And that was it. So I crack up. You envision some unbelievable plan.
And you said
But-
yes, of course.
Of course I said yes. Oh, it was exciting. Yeah, it was really exciting. I remember every day just looking at my hand thinking, oh my gosh, that's my hand. I have a ring on my finger. I never really thought about that kind of stuff before. I wasn't, somebody who concentrated on having a ring on my finger. Just to me, the symbolism of I'm getting married, it was just strange to think that I'm a person engaged. But it was cool. We were very lucky. You can lay out all the plans you want, and sometimes things don't go as planned. And They did. They really did. We dated for the 3 years. We were engaged a year, and then got married, and then 3 years later decided we're gonna have kids, and things happened, and it just really went as planned. I feel pretty lucky because you can't plan those things. You can't.